So hello and welcome everybody to our TUG today on the 8th of July. We are very excited to be talking to you about lots of things to do with new features, and that charming and good looking man there, Mr. John Hawkins, not to be confused with John Hawken or John Hawkins. He's going to talk to us about some of the new features in Tableau, and he's going to talk to us about some various different color and accessibility things within Tableau. And then I'm going to talk for a little bit about some of the tools we can use to supplement our Tableau experience outside of Tableau in that kind of accessibility color realm. And as always, we'll have some chat and some swag and some giveaways and things at the end, and some special tips and tricks from Steve and maybe from Charlotte. So yeah, welcome. We're very glad to have you here and excited to be doing this. So we have this Charlotte, probably waving at you at the moment with her cheesy smile there. And Charlotte, do you want to introduce yourself quick?
Yeah, hi, I'm Charlotte. I work for Arden and Gem CSU. I'm also Tableau ambassador and co-host of this fine Tableau user group.
Yeah, and you'll notice Charlotte in the slide order is first, I'm second, and Steve is last. And can we just assure you that that's entirely democratic and not because Charlotte wanted to be first and put Steve last, and it's been based on alphabetical order. So that's what we've been told anyway. So so yeah, I'm Rowan.
It would be the other way around if it was surnames.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, why is it? Yeah, why did we choose first names, Charlotte? Why? What led you there? So,
was it a democratic choice? I don't know.
Well, I think democratic, as in like how some countries employ democracy, like North Korea. So,
I thought you were going to say the US then.
Oh well, yeah, I won't start that so early. So we'll wait till we're warmed up before we take those jabs. So yeah, I'm newish to the user group, but I'm very excited to be part of it and to be helping to shape it and helping host it and stuff. We really want to have as many of you involved and speaking and so on. So please, we'll do a plug for that later on, but please think about that and get involved and think about joining us from that front. I worked in teaching for a long time as a maths teacher in South Africa and then in England and Scotland, and then found my way into a job in data, and my public sector kind of clung on to me, for lack of a better phrase. And that's the place I find myself in my job, is doing lots and lots of public sector stuff and lots of stuff in the NHS. So that's why I found my way to this TUG to see if I could help here. So hopefully that will be happening. And finally, but not least, we have Steve.
I really do need to update that picture because I lost the beard last year. I don't know where it went, but I don't want it back. So yeah, I'm Steve. I lived in Excel for several decades before I was lucky enough to be introduced to Tableau. Actually, I think it's 10 years ago now. So I've been working with Tableau for 10 years. Enjoyed it so much. I became a Tableau trainer. And luckily, like Charlotte, I'm also been appointed a Tableau ambassador. So that's good fun. There aren't nominations if you want to nominate other people who you think are doing well in the Tableau community, by the way. So that's always a good idea to get involved. There's so much going on. It's a great place, but this isn't about me today. This is over to Rowan again, isn't it? So Rowan, I'll hand back to you.
Yeah, I'll just run us through the agenda and then I'll be handing over to John. So here we are. I don't know if we're keeping for time at all, probably not, but this is kind of what we're aiming generally towards. In fact, we are 5 minutes behind already, as is probably tradition. And then, yeah, so John's going to do his stuff on new features and highlights from the conference and colors and things like that. And then I'll be talking about some external tools. I don't know if we actually have the Menti poll. I apologize, I should have taken that off the agenda, but we'll just do some questions in the chat, which would love you guys to participate in. I'll get onto that later. And then the wrap up and swag and all the rest of it. So I'm going to stop my share and I'm going to hand over to the amazing John, who works for Tableau, but also doesn't drink all their Kool-Aid and is very, very good at finding a good balance of telling us the real deal and what's going on. And so we know in the world of new features, especially for those of you within our subset of our health TUG who work within the NHS, we're aware that you might not have access to all the brand new features because you're not on Tableau Cloud, or you might just be on a slightly older version. So we've got a mix today of the very exciting things that have come up, but also some things that might have come up in the last couple of years where your server is about to upgrade or just upgraded, which will be relevant for you as well. And yeah, over to you, John.
Thanks, Rowan. So hello, everyone. I've just turned my video off to save my bandwidth. So I'm in Sheffield. It's just kind of tipped into like 21 degrees, so things are failing. But we'd be okay. So let's turn on sharing. There we go. Fingers crossed. You're now kind of looking at my screen. So we'll go from there. What am I here to talk about? I'm here to talk about Tableau Server. And yeah, I am going to give kind of my opinion. So I'm going to make this as relevant as possible for you guys. That is my aim. If you have your kind of Tableau / Salesforce bingo cards ready, yes, I will talk about AI, but I'll keep it in context. Yes, I'll talk about cloud, but it's really going to be an afterthought. Today's about server. I'm going to talk about some of the latest and greatest, but also kind of bring you guys up to speed. And I'm going to kind of give my view on server, which kind of, spoiler alert, is positive. So it's all good. Let me find my button and move things on. He says. Cool. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity for occupying 25-30 minutes of your time talking about Tableau Server. This is one of the most fun aspects of my job, is talking to the community and having the opportunity to geek out a little bit about Tableau, which is one of the key reasons why I still remain in my job as an analytics solution engineer. I'm 6 years in. So I joined just pre-acquisition, and I spend my time predominantly, my days are spent working with UK public sector, public health, public security, and I also have the opportunity to work with similar organisations across Europe as well. We're going to be talking about the latest and greatest in Tableau Server. That is what we're doing today. So we could just look at this and think, well, let's pick out some of these individual innovations, as the slide says. But actually, when I look at it, and we will do, but when I look at this slide, certainly in the context of some of the words and the descriptions that we use at Tableau Conference, I'm like super excited about where Tableau Server is and where it can go. Many people questioned kind of, does Tableau Server have a place? Absolutely. There's been some very clear statements on that in a public forum. As a publicly traded company, we have to be very careful about what we say there. My take is this is really good. And kind of, I guess, a little vignette. For a long time, we internally, as like solution engineers, have defaulted to Tableau Cloud. I've just started installing Tableau Server again to start playing around with things specifically on Tableau Server. So if that says anything, please take from it what you want. But I'm really excited about where things are. There is a future for Tableau Server. Tableau Cloud will be there and we'll do some slightly different things, if I'm being honest. But there is a place for Tableau Server, and kind of really exciting place as well, I think. The other thing, on the previous slide, you may have noticed these little light bulb icons. Those indicate features that are essentially kind of been suggested and upvoted for by the community. I kind of implore, maybe that's too strong. Like, I really invite you strongly to upvote, make suggestions, get involved in kind of recommending or asking for new features. They seem to be coming through more and more now, and in the materials that I've got, you'll see we really highlight that. right? So what this also says to me is like, we really want to take the opinion of the community and use that to kind of guide kind of where we go. You kind of see here, yeah, there's some slight differences obviously between the different platforms, the different products, but look, you know, we've got a parity in the little bit of roadmap that's highlighted here, right? So content, features and functions are being developed for Tableau Server alongside Tableau Cloud, and you know, we're kind of keeping pretty close to where they are now. So it's important to get your opinion. We value your opinion. We want that, and it is filtering through to where the product is going as well. I think the other thing just to call out, and it always catches me a little sometimes when I don't remember, the cadence of release cycle changed, and it was, you know, about a year and a bit ago, where it kind of fell into this pattern, right? The latest, I think, kind of speaking to Rowan earlier, certainly in terms of what Interworks are recommending as well. The latest version, the recommended version, is 25.1, and then there is this kind of a slightly extended release cycle. So other products have a more higher cadence, right? But towards the end of the year, we'll get the 25.3, etc. So it kind of skips some versions. That's why the version numbers look a little different. But it's this slightly extended release cycle. Where we are now, kind of the place to be, if you can get there, is as close to 25.1 as you can. So let's kind of, I was going to kind of take apart that latest release through some of the previous ones as well. I picked out kind of 4 or 5 I think are the most exciting. Again, this is all going through what I find exciting, so bear with me. But I haven't chosen Dutch language support. That feels like might not hit the mark here. But there are some of these features I'm going to call out. Again, you see some of the things that have been kind of drawn from the community. Custom themes, recycle bin, some things I'm going to talk about. Again, all driven by ideas coming from the community. So if you see something that's missing, please put it in there. And eventually, like the recycle bin, we'll get there, is the idea. But looking down, say for those aspects around features for the analyst, okay, what we're investing in. Yes, it's a little bit around the UI. There are these additions and extensions. Okay, so additions to what Tableau can do. Some of the new extensions are really cool. Then there's the kind of further up the pipeline around the data model, etc. And the web authoring experience, pretty much getting on, well, I don't want to say it's on parity with desktop. I still default to desktop myself, if I'm being honest. But it is getting much closer, particularly around that kind of formatting area, in terms of what can be done in web edit, web authoring, to save jumping between the two. Right. So there's some other little bits like that kind of here's load progress dialogue, which is kind of interesting, gives a bit more feedback to the user as content loads. If you have looked around and seen that either on your own environment or elsewhere, it's kind of useful. But think of it more as creating a friendlier environment. That's what some of these things do. And again, all these again, look at those other key areas, right? Developers, blah blah blah, IT and admin. There's like the underpinnings of the platform. These are all being developed. How the materials and what's shared in and around feature releases tends to follow these kind of key themes, if you've not seen it before. So I'm going to dig into a couple of these just around 25.1. First place to start, and actually it's not new in this release, but there are enhancements, I think is the key thing. But I always kind of like talking about it because it's kind of super useful. The extension, okay, so you actually download it. download the extension. You see on the marks card on that screen cap there, you got the little kind of jigsaw piece next to Tableau table. This is indicating that it's that kind of external extension as opposed to like a native viz type. So there's a little bit of configuration needed, not too much. But what it allows us to do is kind of get us closer to where actually the community have been asking us to be for a long time, making tables. So I'm sure you've been through all the various hacks and approaches that have been out there and hit the same limitations that I have around how you can make tables and make them nice, right? And, you know, as you see here, individual filters on top of each column. That, or those series of limitations, that experience kind of is where the extension comes in, how it addresses kind of some of the limitations, right? We all know people like looking at, for good reason, look data in tables. We need to make that experience better. That's where the Viz extension comes in. So even though this is not brand new in this version, some of you may not have seen it before, and it's just an enhancement, it's really powerful. I really recommend using this. And yeah, as I say, that it means you get round, I am sure, some of the workarounds and hacks and all those other things that we've all tried, right? Use that extension, and it also then starts to support some of the accessibility, kind of keyboard navigation and stuff like that. Okay, gets us into a much better place, supporting that user experience. Okay, so let's say the little bit of configuration. You know, you download it from this thing called Tableau Exchange. If you've not seen Tableau Exchange, not only does it have Viz extensions like this, there are additional connectors. There are the kind of templates, the accelerators, depending on your use case, which are provided directly by us, Salesforce, or by partners as well. There's a lot of content there, not least, I say, this like table enhancement. Start using it, it's cool. Similarly, like the Sankey, another extension will be the Sankey extension, which was kind of beated a little while ago, and that's now fully available. So like there's some lots of cool stuff on there. I recommend doing it. Okay, so slightly different, focus of feature, and kind of bear with me on this. It may feel quite different to that kind of table extension bit. What this VizQL data service does, you can read those kind of descriptions there. We can expose and make available to other applications the validated and governed, kind of the curated data sets, published data sets that live in Tableau. So we move all into this kind of world of kind of headless BI. We are not using Tableau to viz on top of this data, but what we can do is allow other applications to either visualize or make use of data that lives in Tableau. Specifically Tableau server here, right? You have your whole pipelines, you use prep, you use kind of whatever else you want to, or you do at the moment to build those pipelines, have those published data sources. But alongside that drag and drop experience, we can then make this available to other applications. So I've got an example of what that looks like, and this is kind of one of the, you see you've got the kind of dreaded AI label there. This is one of the really powerful, interesting things that comes from this capability, is having then Tableau Server as this super flexible layer, analytics layer that can then start communicating and working with other applications. It really, again, builds on this idea of Tableau Server now being super exciting because it's incredibly flexible. It becomes really powerful with what you can do with Tableau Server and how it can then work with other applications, but also work with other applications that then bring back experiences into Tableau as well. So more of that later, right? So it might appear a little dry, it's got an acronym. Sometimes it's never that exciting, but to me, this is points towards like some of the super flexible, exciting, interesting things that we can start to do with Tableau Server from now. And feel free to, I'll leave a minute or two for questions as well, or put them in chat and I'll pick them up. Themes like this is kind of one of the things that I think got like the biggest response at TC. If you saw some of the recordings, right, we now have the kind of much more powerful way. There's a little bit of copying and pasting before. You could do a few things here and there, moving content between tabs and stuff like that. But certainly when it came to ensuring a uniform look and feel, is a little bit fiddly. All right. This now gets so much easier. And I think kind of worthwhile playing with, definitely check out, and I've got a link to it, I can pop this in the chat as well. There's a Tableau tin video on YouTube, which goes into a really cool use and application of these custom themes. The content that Tableau Tim highlights, and shout out to Tableau Tim. There is some publicly available Tableau Tim workbooks which you can use and run with, and I've started kind of taking that and using it as well, which kind of really quick start that polishing kind of look and feel approach. Underneath it all, it's using this additional capability to do kind of custom things, right? So you can design and kind of create once this kind of template, and then apply that on and on and on. So I know lots of other organizations have that I've seen have had, consistent style guides and, well documented kind of visual guidelines. We've now kind of got a much easier way to both share and deploy those. I think that is a real time saver. And again, I'll get that link to the Tableau Tim video, which talks about actually a really cool kind of build out of these kind of templates. Definitely kind of look at that. It's quite a long video. You can do it on 1.2 times, but bottom line is there's a really cool asset out there on Tableau Public that's worth looking at around this area. There we go. Okay, so again, I can't remember, probably even long before I joined Tableau, this will be a feature that's been recommended. So it's taken a bit of time to filter through, but we now have a recycle bin. So it makes it a lot easier, and quite frankly, a lot more like your other applications to delete and then restore, and kind of manage that kind of content life cycle and getting rid of content in a way that's kind of like actually just a modern experience, if we're being honest. Yeah, it's a gap that we've kind of finally filled. There we go. But always worth kind of highlighting that. Again, something kind of super useful. Okay. And the other thing is, and it threw me a little bit when one of our cloud sites got like an early upgrade. There's a change to the navigation style. It looks slightly different when you kind of log in and explore projects and search for projects. It is easier, I think, once you get used to it. I think this is a step forward in terms of that experience of exploring and kind of navigating a site. It makes it a lot easier to find content, recognize where we are, and of course kind of organize that, and probably organize that content a lot better than I and my team does internally. You'll have proper structures, but this kind of really kind of improves that experience and makes things a lot kind of easier to kind of work through, right? Not just relying on breadcrumbs, have this kind of visual exploding and kind of drawable hierarchy. Makes things a lot nicer. Okay, so those are like some of the exciting things. When was 25.1 released? About a month ago, something like that. So those are, I think, some of the key things to talk about. But you saw the list before. There's a whole ton of stuff that's in there to explore as well. just calling out some of the previous releases, depending on recognize that it takes time to upgrade. So you may not even be on the previous version, which is 24.2 in this case, or some of the others. Just want to kind of call some of these out. Talked about that table extension. It was in 24.2 that those extensions, that capability was kind of first available. So as soon as you get there, you can start using say like the Sankey extension, etc. Those that are available. There's some other cool stuff. The thing that I particularly liked about this upgrade was around the scheduling for prep conductor. So I lose track of how many pulse metrics. All right, let's talk about Tableau Cloud here. But like for me, running those particular prep flows, I make kind of 1 or 2 a week to do that. Managing those schedules on custom bases is makes that super easy. So that as a feature, came in at 24.2. There's some other bits and bobs in there, depending on if you use S3. Again, right into that, super useful. We tend to use it, we have less formal pipelines internally for me kind of building content. But S3 is really useful. Really useful kind of storage technology. Throw stuff in there, you can pick it up. It's still good. Line buffers, if you're doing visual geospatial stuff, that's a really cool thing to look at as well. And then come on to the server release prior to that. Shout out to Microsoft's Team app, finally available. I think I was talking about that for best part of a year running up to this being available. So again, I hope it's not being recorded. There's not anyone else from Salesforce on here. We recognise that everybody uses Slack. Teams is like the predominant technology, if we're being honest. We now have that integration into Teams, so you can share and collaborate on Teams, and a bit of configuration on the Microsoft side, a little bit of configuration in server. You can start collaborating over Teams. It's really cool. Those other things, yeah, we've got some of the, this is where the accessibility stuff starts coming in. An area that will be invested in more, and I've seen more on the roadmap coming up. But in terms of what kind of is available now, okay, we've got those enhancements around kind of screen readers and transitions, makes it much more straightforward, and starts us getting into a place where actually I can more confidently answer those types of accessibility questions. I remember kind of prior to this release, there was a whole 10, 12, even 20 links of content that I would kind of refer people to start developing content that is, that meets accessibility standards. We've got kind of the native capabilities coming in. It makes it a lot more straightforward. And spatial parameters makes it super easy to have that kind of geospatial drill down, and those additional bits of interactivity for geospatial analysis as well. Again, yeah, you see those coming through from the community. So coming up to the final bit of what I want to talk about. And again, this is where I kind of preempted it a bit before. You have a reference to Tableau Cloud and you have a reference to AI, right? So feel free to kind of ignore Tableau Cloud. We really are just talking about Tableau Server now. Because this is, again, one of the, I think, almost game-changing. That's certainly kind of how we feel about it, kind of in my team, and kind of internally, kind of game-changing capabilities. To date, if we, in a Tableau presentation, we talk about AI, typically, yeah, as you see on the left-hand side, it would be talking about Pulse. It would be talking about this thing called Tableau Agent. And it only lived in cloud. Things have kind of changed. Right? Things have changed relatively recently, and there's, it was only even, I think, last week or the week before, there was some new announcements around this area that's coming out. Again, on this theme of flexibilities, it says there, like with VisQual as a service, capability. Tableau server isn't going to get like super powerful and be able to offer these generative AI supported experiences. How are we doing that? Well, I'm going to kind of open that up a little bit. The approach has been to kind of use open source tools. So what it does mean is it can live fully within your network, right? Of course, there is a requirement to stand up and build some other stuff outside Tableau, but we've got these additional integrations, right? Documented, fully on GitHub, it's out there, and with kind of content to show that as well. We've got those available. I'm going to kind of drill into that in a little bit. Also, you may see Tableau agent within the Tableau server box coming at the end of the year. So we are building in those agent-like experiences into Tableau server. Around, as it says there, web authoring and dashboard insights. So what does that look like? It looks like asking natural language questions and it will build a viz for you. And it's, getting a natural language description, highlighting what's in a dashboard. So it'll look at the vizzes, the content, the published data sources that sit behind it. It will find relevant content and surface those for you. Okay, there's SKUs and stuff and commercial stuff around that. But I've included this because again, to me, this is what I'm really excited about where Tableau server is going. It's going to be like this Swiss Army knife that can kind of sit anywhere, but it's going to be within your network or on PaaS, and it can connect to all these other things and support these other experiences. So if it's okay, I'm going to kind of talk more about AI, okay? But bear in mind, this is Tableau server based. It is coming. It's there now. So there are, and I will share these slides because there's links to GitHub repositories, to videos showing more about what's available today. It says on that left-hand box, you can build agents. You can have natural language conversations in a dashboard, and it looks at your published data sources and tells you what's going on. It's really cool. What's coming? There's more things being developed. It's like think of it more like it's an open source technology based approach, right? So we will be releasing things that live on GitHub and available kind of via APIs that allow you to kind of build these kind of app-like experiences. There you go. Agent is coming. It's kind of released. It's got a release date now, so the next release of server expecting agent to drop. So you will be able to get some of those experiences that to date have only existed on Tableau Cloud will be available in Tableau server. So again, think of it as helping creators and helping viewers. Tableau Pulse remains Tableau Cloud only. So outside of the scope of kind of what's been developed. Final bits, bringing this all together. So what really makes this fly, makes this tick, is this VisQL data service, right? New sets of APIs which open up published data sources. Okay, with a little bit of configuration, a little bit of kind of coding, or kind of reuse of existing code to link it through to these open source projects like LangChain, which is kind of what's landed first and what was shown first at TC. But there's these other like Llama Index, like the Meta produced one, and Haystack, etc. These other open source Gen AI technologies which have been made available, which again you can run in your network. What this opens up is keeping these experiences and this data flow entirely on network. So they're within security boundary, right? You're not relying on OpenAI's kind of servers based in the US, for example. So it will, via an extension, like those Viz extensions, support asking questions, looking at your published data sources and giving you a response back. A colleague of mine has been using this, taking the ball and run with it, and with a combination of not only the VisQL API, but a few other APIs, is getting a Gen AI. I think he used LangChain for this. I'd have to check, but essentially getting an LLM to interrogate different data sources and say, well, this looks like it can support these types of questions. Basically, search engine across your published data sources to say, well, this looks like it might be useful for this particular use case, for example, right? So it's really kind of changing how we can interact with data through Tableau Server as well. I think I'm kind of coming up to the end of the time. There's a couple of, if you want to dig into the architecture, here we go. It's kind of high level, right? But if you're interested, the libraries and everything else, all available, it's documented, it's on those links on the kind of slide above that I will share. But really it kind of opens up for these really interesting types of experiences. I know this is moving away from kind of traditionally where, kind of Tableau drag and drop experiences have been, but again, this is part of why I think, there's a really exciting future for Tableau Server. Okay, and there's at the moment 2 documented integrations. There's a LangChain and MCP. Essentially, it's just they achieve the similar outcomes, but there's different approaches to kind of supporting that configuration. So that will pause. So thinking to hit time. Hopefully, what I've done is communicate how excited I am about Tableau Server, and say now I'm kind of like firing up an AWS instance to install Tableau Server again in a way that I haven't done for a little bit. Not only just kind of use some of those features that I mentioned earlier, which kind of get us up to pretty much close to where Tableau Cloud is in terms of experience, which shows that we're still investing in it, but then start to use some of this new stuff as well. And again, to be clear, this can kind of live within your network, within your security boundary. And there's a ton of stuff that's out there that you may be interested in, including the videos, other communities, even a Slack channel if you want to kind of speak to the Tableau data devs around that as well. So that being said, I think I've kind of hit time, or I will leave a little minute or two for some questions, but there we go. That's the kind of key things that I want to talk about.
Cool, thanks, John. If you have any questions, please do chuck them in the chat, and we'll hit them. We've got lots of time left, so even if they come in.
Rowan, you're on mute somehow.
Am I? Can you not hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you, Rowan.
Okay, good. Phew. It's just you, Steve. Thanks. That was really interesting. Very exciting to see the future and what might be unfolding. Stuff we're seeing in other technologies that Tableau's kind of getting involved in and using some of the existing bits and pieces that it has already and developed already to get there. So if you do have a question, please chuck it in the chat for John. And even if we get to it back at the end, that's definitely fine. Charlotte or Steve, did you have anything you wanted to comment, or shall I crack on?
No, I'm just really excited, particularly excited about the custom color palettes. Getting those done will make it so much easier to have them.
Yeah, I'm going to show you how hard it is at the moment. That's my job. I think Steve's left us now. He must be having some technical issues. I'm sure he'll be joining back in a second. Yeah, so I am going to do a horrible job of sharing and going backwards and forwards between various things, and it's going to be pretty clunky, but I have one screen and I was hoping to have 2, but I have 1, so that is what we have. So good luck, everybody. So here we go, back to PowerPoint to start off with. So so we're going to be talking about some external tools we can look at for better dashboards, like accessibility, color, style enhancements, that sort of thing. And we're going to be looking at how to make our dashboards more inclusive, to pass various standards, how to make it more visually engaging. And we're also going to focus on what you can do if you're inside the NHS or inside an organization where you can't install your own stuff. You have to kind of do things online. So we'll be looking at some of that. So first one, again, this is why Charlotte's excited, because it's quite a convoluted process at the moment, but we'll look at some tools you can use until you get to that version of Tableau, which I think is which I think is not released yet, where you can have your, is it 2025.2? Or I don't know, I should have been paying more attention, shouldn't I?
0.1.
25.1, sorry, John, where you can do your custom palettes. But if you're not there yet, this is the kind of the workarounds that you have to use. to do your own color palettes. And some of you will feel the pain already of having to do this a bit and edit preference files and things like that. But I will show you a little bit of how to do that quite briefly and a couple of tools we can use for that. But hopefully we can all ignore this soon. And when you're in 2025.1 and onwards or cloud, then you won't have to go through all of this. So I am going to jump out to, here we go, to Tableau. And if you just Google color tool Interworks, then this is the color tool that got developed for you to be able to do your particular preference. And what you can do here within this, and you can see here as an example of how it generates based on different colors. You can go in and pick whatever colors you want, and it'll create sequential and diverging color palettes as well within Tableau for you. Or, you know, we can delete this off, what we can do is add an image in. So we can upload an image into here. So if I go into, should hopefully be one of my recent files to give this a try, if my computer will warm up a little bit. And what we can do is we can drag an image into this particular box any moment now. And yeah, here we go. I wonder if I've got it recently here. No. So let's go into my youth justice board work that I'm doing at the moment. And I've got in fact, I think I might just be in youth justice board here. I've got a little image here which has some icons and colors that are used within the youth justice board. And I throw that in and it looks through that image and it pulls out some of the colors it can see and it creates a custom palette in there. Once I've done that, I can either download the file and just replace my preferences file with this. So I can go and download that. And what I need to do is make sure that goes into my Tableau repository. So place it in there as it says, and then restart Tableau before I use it. So I'm not going to do that here, but I'll show you what you would do. So you go into your documents and then into my Tableau repository, and you'll see there's a preferences file. So I would replace that, but I don't replace mine because mine's got color palettes in it already. Or what I can do is go into that particular document. So document, Tableau repository, preferences, and you don't double click to open it. So this is quite important. Open it, right click, edit with Notepad or Notepad Plus, or open with, and then you choose Notepad. I prefer a Notepad Plus, but you might just have Notepad on yours. And not now. And you can see mine. So I've got like a few that are in here already. And you just have to follow this kind of syntax. You can paste it in wherever you want. And you have your color palette in here. It just starts off with color palette name, and then it ends with /color palette at the end. So you just kind of follow that syntax, but that syntax will be there for you in this already. So you just copy in the relevant bit that you need from here, and then you have that preferences in. If you prefer, you don't quite like this UI, or you want something slightly different, here's another one. So another one, and also just to say there's a blog which can go through this in more detail. Again, I think we'll put out the PowerPoint presentation with all the different things. Yeah, so if you do color tool Interworks blog, it just takes you to a blog here, which kind of goes through all of that in a bit more detail up here. If you prefer a slightly different UI, you can put in color style manager Tableau and search for that. And this thing from Alex called his website here, it's quite easy. So you can actually write this down now if you wanted. visq.nz/CMT, CMT for color manager for Tableau. And this is just a slightly different UI doing a very similar thing. So again, we can drag and drop. So if I go back to here, and will it be my recent, here we go. And I can drag my same image in here and drag it into the space, and you can see the colors are coming up here. You can see which one does better for you within your particular image. And we click add onto that in here. Sorry, it's just taking a second. Sorry, so select all my colors and add them in. And you can choose categorical, choose gradient within that. So you can diverge between what you want, and eventually you'll download in the same sort of way and put that into your Tableau preferences file. It's got quite a nice sort of user interface where you can you can add new colors and choose colors and add them in and delete them off quite easy. It's quite a simple UI. It's a bit slightly less choices and things to do within this one, but it's quite straightforward. So that's a different way to do it. And once you're in Tableau, you've got all these custom color palettes to pick from and apply and assign to palette within Tableau. But I'm not going to show you that, but just for time at the moment. Great, so let's continue our journey. So the next thing we're going to be looking at, I'm not going to jump back to PowerPoint, but just talk about what we're doing next. So next, what we're going to be looking at is trying to make sure we're passing accessibility. And there's a few different things we can do within this. So one of the downloadable programs we can use to see if we pass accessibility is our color contrast analyzer. And I've downloaded it already, but you just go onto that website here. So just Google color contrast analyzer. It's the first one here from TPGI, and you download this little app if you have control of your machine and you're able to do that. And basically you put in your hex codes and see that everything works. So if I just take some colors from Google, for example, and see what it would look like. So if we do the color picker, and let's take Google's yellow, and we say, what would that look like if we put Google's yellow on top of Google's red? Would that, if that's what we wanted for our color palette? And that's what it shows. Would this pass our requirements? And again, my screen's a bit smaller than I want, and it's not quite going to the size I want yet. But we can kind of see that it's failing at the moment, failing with the regular text, with the AA standards and AAA standards, and so on and so forth. So you can play around with different colors. You can just type the hex codes in directly in that you have, or you could have your Tableau desktop or Tableau web in the background, in the window behind, and use the color dropper in and out to just check that whatever you're doing, the contrast, the colors at the back and the front. In fact, what I should have here is I noticed that, just to pick you out here, John, the style image that you have, I'm pretty sure some of that would definitely not, within the workbook formatting, the new format definitely wouldn't pass some of the color thing. So this will just help to make sure that whatever you pick would do that. So yeah. So that's the first tool. If you're able to download, it's quite nice, quite neat, quite small. It's just very simple. So I quite like it. But you might not be able to download your own thing. So, and if you on a Mac, you can type in sim daltonism. This is Mac only, and you can get something in the Mac store that does something very similar. So that's another alternative for you. I'm not going to go into that because I don't have a Mac. Too cool to have a Mac. That's what I'm going to say for now. And then the next one, we're looking at 3 websites, and these are just whichever UI you kind of prefer, what you like, and this is where you can type in your color and your background color, and then decide if it needs to be AA or AAA. And so we're looking at colors versus one color versus each other, and you can kind of see the contrast, and you can tell the weight and the size and so on. So I'm actually going to use, no, not that. I'm going to use my accessibility to play with this again. So let's pick out some colors from around my screen. Let's pick out a Tableau color. So up there, can I find that? Yeah, let's pick out a Tableau orange up there, and that tells me the hex code is there. So I'm just using this as a cheat to put some things into here that I can think about. So let's put that in. And let's put that against, let's go back to that last one. Let's go the color pick again, and let's see how Tableau orange does against its blue. So let's pick out the Tableau blue in there, which is that color. And let's see the background of blue, and let's see how we do. So fail, pass, pass. So, and if we change the weighting, see if that changes to bold, and so on. So it depends which way around we have it, but yeah, we can see here what the ratio is supposed to be and what the ratio is. But it says it fails here, but then it says if we change the background color to this instead, would be okay. Or if you change the text color to this, would be okay. So it kind of goes as close as we can, so we can pick these out instead and have a look at that. But at the moment, it just fails in here. So the other websites are pretty similar, but it's quite neat and quite useful, and really worth doing when you're starting your dashboard, or if you're designing the templates for your organization, just checking that everyone can see, because not everyone might have the eyes that you have, which are work quite as well as yours. So important to check those. Then we have color review. we can just pick out the foreground and the background using this sort of thing, and we can see where things might pass or fail according to what colors we have that were chosen. So it's just a different way around a similar problem. If you have a bit more freedom, if you can pick out your colors, but you're not necessarily bound by certain brand colors within your organization, and you've got the freedom to change the contrast up or down a little bit. This is quite neat and quite useful. So that's color view. Again, I do apologize if you haven't noticed already, the word color is misspelled all over the place within these websites. You just have to kind of put up with that. This one's misspelled, but in a different way, in coolers. And yeah, just a very similar idea, picking out some colors that just gives you a star rating rather than sort of where it passes or fails, but it kind of depends your vibe if this might be your thing a little bit more. And the last thing I was just going to show you to round off this section is just what you might want to look at when you're thinking about colors and accessibilities and star guides. To me, this is a little bit the gold standard of where you might want to get to. It's quite hard to find this web page, so I will put in the chat. Whatever I typed into Google, it just wouldn't give me the first link that I wanted. For some reason, someone in NHS Digital Legacy has done a much better job with SEO than anyone in NHS England. So I think a lot of the links in here, is this the wrong one? Yeah, so I think this is NHS Digital. So like whatever I typed in, it just wouldn't give me the ones that I wanted, but I do have it bookmarked. So let me grab that in here. And then here, so we have it here. I'll put the actual thing. It's the NHS England GitHub. Again, I said pretty much whatever I Googled, I couldn't quite hit the results I wanted to put in, but I'll put the link on chat in a minute. And this is very comprehensive. Some of you might have seen this in other communities and calls that have happened, but it just goes through all sorts of standards, all sorts of expectations for those building Tableau dashboards or other dashboards within the NHS England environment. And I think this is a really good place for any NHS org to start and to go from. If there's have some slight diverging standards or color palettes or things that they want, then they can adapt that in. But this is a really useful place to go. It has all sorts of things about sizing of dashboards, about navigation, about colors, the different scales it expects, what the hex codes are, what the icons and logos are, how the chart type should be, which chart to use in which situation, how to design the tables. And then it also has some templates as well, some Tableau dashboard templates. And at some point, if hopefully they'll organize themselves to add into this, especially when they upgrade, the actual files, which will be the formatting files, which they can apply to their dashboards as well, which might retrospectively, which might be really helpful too. So I think this is a great resource, and there's a lot of things to think about and a lot of ways to be safe and to make sure you're not going outside of accessibility guidelines, because it's all been really thought through and put through together really carefully and thoroughly within that. So that's for later. So yeah, I'm going to stop sharing there and just have a look at the chat, see if there's any questions or anything having come in for John or otherwise. Seems like not. Okay, so I think before we get into the fun swag prize giveaway stuff, Charlotte, is it 3? We're giving away 3. Is that what we normally do? Great. Okay, and I just need to paste the people on the chat in there, don't I? So I'll do that in the background. But I'll hand over to you, Steve, if you've got some tricks and things for us.
Cool. Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good, because for some reason I couldn't hear you earlier, Rowan. I could hear everybody else. There was a Rowan filter on my Mac, and I think
everyone needs one of those. I think
you were slating the Mac earlier on. I think
I
it just jumps in. Right. So I'm just going to share my screen. There you go. It was just a few quick tips and tricks on Tableau, just in case these may be of benefit to you. We all know the wonderful calculation editor. When I pop up a calculation editor, we can navigate between worksheets, which is really quite cool if that calculation is affecting multiple worksheets. We want to just look to see what's going on if I'm debugging it or making some changes. I can also do that from a dashboard as well, so that stays open until I close it. But when you have closed it, were you aware that if you wanted to edit a calculated field from the dashboard, you can? You don't have to go back to a worksheet. We can do that from the analysis tab up here, and I can go down to edit a calculated field. And that will show the calculated fields based upon the data sources linked to the worksheet that I've got selected as well. So if you've got multiple data sources in a dashboard, you can select that. So that's tip number one. Another tip, sometimes we want to show the total for a view and a visualization. So I'm just going to show a particular dimension here. And we can see we've got 17 different marks. It may be interesting for me to show the total for those marks. The problem is when we bring that on to our visualization, it takes up all of the space and all of the bars have shrunk. Well, there is a reasonably easy trick to overcome that, which is using a table calculation called size. Let me just pop up my calculation editor here. We're going to call this altered sales. Doesn't really matter which one we've got, but I've noticed that we've got quantity on here, so I'll put sales in there instead. And I'm just going to type that in very quickly. That was quick, wasn't it? And size is a table calculation. It doesn't take any arguments. What it does, though, is it tells you how many items there are in a particular window. So if I click on OK now, what's going to happen is nothing. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to replace my sales and with the altered sales value. And what that will do is it will say, well, if it's size 1, which there is only one of in the grand total, then it removes it and just shows it as 0. So now I've got the equivalent. Now, why might I want to do that? Well, the obvious reason is because I might want to have a label on each of my bars. So I can now see the total label on each of my bars, but I can also see what the total is across the whole of that table as well. And of course, you can start playing around with the labels as well. So that's quick tip number 2. We can take that one step further as well. So if I wanted to bring in another dimension, I could bring in category, for example, and we can see we don't have our subtotals on here, but I'm going to go and add my subtotals because that kind of breaks it to start with, because it's still showing the subtotal values. But then all we need to do is change the compute using on our table calculation so that it's pointing at the lowest dimension, in this case subcategory, so we get the totals on the subtotals and not the bars as well. One very quick hack which one of my trainee delegates showed me once. It's always good to be training people who come up with great questions and they say they've done something and you think, oh, that was cool. Which was, how do I add the subtotals and the total totals all at once? Well, I'm just going to drill in. So I've got 3 dimensions. I've got category, subcategory, and product name. If I go to analytics over here, I could just double click on the totals and that's now added in. In fact, I'm going to put that into a table format so you can see what's going on. We've got our subtotals coming in for all 3 of those different dimensions, and the columns and the row headers if there were any in there as well. So that's a quick tip. It's just double click on totals on the analytics tab.
Cool. Thanks, Steve.
That's probably about enough, Rowan. I'm going to hand over to you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, so thanks very much. There's some really cool things. Definitely learned a couple of bits there. Thanks for that, Steve. So yeah, all that's left to do is to do our swag wheel and say goodbye and ask for your help as always. So
did you see my DM before you bring up the swag wheel?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Okay. just to mention that our swag, unfortunately, is only available. We only afford postage to the UK. So if you win and you are outside of the US, then I will just try and make a plan to make sure that that doesn't happen. So yeah, we'll see. We'll make a plan around that. So I've got the wheel loaded up. Let me just share my screen. Here we go, and let's click to see who our first winner is. Wolf. Congratulations,
No.
Wolf. Who was our first person on the call. I think that's why you won that. So if you come first to the next one, you'll win. That's my guarantee to you.
Oh,
So,
that's a good promise.
okay, so I have to remove you now, Wolf, but you're our first winner. And let's go again. Oops, I didn't mean to shuffle. But anyway, I think it's just my sharing thing is in the wrong button place there. Let's see who our second winner is. Round of applause. I mean, drum roll. And we have, oh, it's getting close. Is it going to stay? Go. It's going to go. Oh, sorry, Usha. It's going to be Ali. So Ali is our second winner. So congratulations to Ali. And finally, our third one is, oh, it's going to go over. Yes, it's going to be Caroline. Okay, so that was Caroline, Ali, and Wolf. So if you can, what's the process here again, Charlotte? Did they message us directly?
Yeah, if you want to go into your DMs and message either me, Rowan, or Steve your address, and we'll get some little Tableau swag over to you.
Yeah, if I don't get in trouble for this, well, I hope I get in trouble for this, but my advice to you would be to message Charlotte. She's the most organized one.
I have to back you up on that one, Ron, 100%.
I have the swag in my house.
But she also has the swag in her house, and she has the kind of the buttons that she's allowed to press in the swag store. So that to be fair as well. Both things are true. So great. So finally over to our PowerPoint to finish off with. So thank you very much for joining us. We've loved having you, chatting to us, and so on. Please stay connected with us, and please message us to let us know what you would like to have covered, and if you have anything you would like to share, want to speak, we're really interested in that too. And our next up presentation is going to be in September, and we have Miriam Ali from GM, and she's going to be talking to us. So before I say goodbye, I'm going to check back in with Steve and Charlotte. Is there anything else before we say goodbye to everybody?
No, I've got Wolf's address. Thank you, Wolf. And I will get in touch with Ali and Caroline if they're not on the call already.
Okay, well, thank you very much, John, for sharing with us. We really appreciated that, and it was really useful. And thanks, everyone, for coming along, and we'll see you in September.
Brilliant. Have a good summer break in the meantime.
Bye, everybody.
Cheers.
Okay. Bye.